So if you can kind of go down the line and just say your name and the film that you worked on, and where you go to school, that would be awesome. Alex, you want to start?
I'm Alex, and I directed my hero.
Oh, and speak loudly.
I directed my hero, and I'm going to SUNY Purchase right now.
In the film department. Was this part of a, but you were at Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Was this part of a Sinatra thing that you had to do?
Yes and no. Kind of started before, but then I just finished it under Sinatra, kind of.
Eli?
Hi, I'm Eli. My film is Cross Currents. It's a short experimental film, and I go to St. Anne's School in Brooklyn.
I'm Jasmine Dorothy Haefner. I'm one of the actresses in The Escape, which was directed by Kat Elbaum. I graduated from Stony Brook University a couple of years ago.
I'm Bella. I directed He's Like Milk, He Expires. I go to Hunter College, but He's Like Milk, He Expires was for a project for Sinatra.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. Jasmine was kind enough, Kat reached out to me on Instagram, and she was kind of frantic to find an actress who would work during the pandemic in her apartment. And so Jasmine stepped in, and I was very grateful, and so was Kat, so thank you.
Of course, me too.
So if you want to tell us a little about kind of what inspired you to make this specific film. Bella, if you want to start.
My film is a portrait documentary about my grandfather. What inspired me to make my film is I made it at a time where I was really close to my grandfather. It was shortly after the passing of my grandmother, and I kind of just needed something to do, and we were talking about film a lot, so I used it as an opportunity to kind of engage in activity with him in a casual way, but also make something I really wanted to out of it.
And you had done a similar one about your grandmother, which was also beautiful. How did you kind of get into portrait documentaries? Or did it kind of find you? Like, what was the evolution of your portrait documentary career, which you basically have now?
I got into it because of the accessibility of it and my ability to make them by myself, and how intimate and personal they are. But then it just kind of became a thing I kept doing, and it was something I was drawn to because I found a personal connection with the way I was expressing myself rather than just the storytelling of one person. So I kept doing them, and I began to really like how they all fell into each other and how they all started to express similar themes that bled into each other.
Jasmine?
From what I know, Kat's reason for making The Escape was based off of, it was a project that had to do with replicating a similar type of style to the director of Black Swan.
Anybody know who that is?
Darren Aronofsky.
They know. Darren Aronofsky. And when I spoke with her about why she decided to write the film, she mentioned it being a coming-of-age story that felt really true to her, between a mother who was very restrictive and a daughter who was ready to spread her wings. That was, I think, Kat's basis for making the film.
That's awesome. Ela?
Yeah, so my film is Cross Currents. It's an experimental animation made up entirely of computer board chips. And basically, I had an animation class at my school, and we had to make a final project, and I was looking for things that I could stop motion animate that would look interesting. And I was going around my house, I tried markers, didn't really look that great. I tried different things. I think I tried different paper, didn't really look that great. And I was going through the basement, and I found this old box of computer parts. And I was like, ooh, these are so interesting. They're so dense. They're so visually stimulating in many ways. And I took photos of it, and I basically animated it together. And then really, really liked that and thought it could be its own film. So then I went out and got more computer parts. I ordered a couple on eBay, different colors, and I started to make, a full film with it. And I also gathered sound effects on it, and that's sort of how the film.
That's awesome. I love the evolution of it. Like, I love how stuff evolves. Alex?
I don't know, man. It was supposed to be a bigger project, and we were making commercials for it, kind of like for a bigger, like 16-minute project, but then that fell through, so I just edited these together to kind of tell not really a coherent story, but just a story that I can, like just me personally, it's personal to the script that I wrote, because I really like the script. Yeah, that's it.
I mean, there's a lot of raw emotion in it, and it comes across beautifully. So
Yeah, I think because it's there, like the characters are there, you know, like they were a lot more fleshed out in what I originally wanted to do, and even some parts of that are shown, I would have used for the main film, but it never came to be. So yeah.
it will eventually. I think it's a future project waiting to
Yeah, I
happen.
think honestly, I'd rather a bigger budget.
Yes, budgets are helpful. A
Yeah.
budget, right?
Yeah, and just also shooting in the pandemic is like a fucking nightmare.
Yes, this, I mean, this has been such an, I don't know, trying time for everybody, but especially for filmmakers. So how did you, and you guys have been in film school, in film classes during the pandemic. Like, so I don't even know what to say that's not cliche, but like kind of, how did you keep yourself sane? I don't know if I'm sane anymore,
Are you
so
asking?
yeah, all of you. Okay, you can start. All of you, that's for all of you.
I didn't.
I agree, with myself, not you. Eli?
I tried to, I also didn't, but I felt like a way of coping for me was just to make a huge amount of stuff. Like I sort of, maybe some of the stuff in it wasn't so good, but I just ended up like making a huge amount of stuff, and I felt like that was a way for me to sort of express the feelings that I was having.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wasn't a student in the general sense of the term throughout the pandemic, but I can speak to what it was like to be an artist, especially a performance artist during the pandemic. And I watched every single person in my community go from having whole seasons booked, national tours booked, world premieres booked, to having everything canceled and watching that be taken away. And I'm sure people in this audience know, but like the world lost so many artists during COVID. I don't mean they passed away. What I mean is I know many artists who left their professions to seek more stable jobs during the pandemic and who will likely never go back to being full-time artists anymore. And that was really hard to see. But for myself personally, the pandemic and quarantine was a time of great artistic growth for me because I was able to keep my income and use the time that I didn't have
They're like,
before
how?
to
Tell us.
introspect.
How were you able to keep your...
Keep my income? Oh, I teach chess to children.
Oh.
And so all of my chess lessons went from being in person to being online during the pandemic.
That's awesome.
But the only difference is that I didn't have to travel from home to teach them. So I ended up with an extra 15 hours a week I didn't have before, and I spent most of that writing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What was the question?
What did you do? How did you keep sanity, if any, during the pandemic as an artist, as a student of film?
I'm not really sure. I watched a lot of things.
Yes.
I became an intense consumer of content. I think it's like ever evolving. Like now I read, and at the beginning of the pandemic I just watched TV, and now I write too. So I think it's just kind of like something that you find like what entertains you and what inspires you, and the art that you make kind of subconsciously feeds off of that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's interesting that, so many people left the arts during it, but that everybody turned to the arts to get through it, right? So the irony of that was very bittersweet. Or just